Hey guys. Okay, so earlier today I promised an excerpt reading on Twitter. I asked you if you wanted to hear me read some passage from the Spirit Catchers, and a few of you said yes. So I thought, you know what, I have to promote the story anyway, so I figured this would be a good way for me to kind of tie in to my future promotional plans, which I'm not going to talk about right here and now, but eventually I'll tell you what I'm planning to do. So I have the book right here. As you can see, I don't want to take up too much time with introduction and all that, because it is a fairly longer chapter that I've chosen, even though it's a fairly pivotal one. So rather than chatting away here, I'm just going to get right into it, and yeah, we'll see how that goes. So just to give you a little bit of context here, Sarah is basically about to be taken down into the ward, which, for those of you who don't know yet or who haven't read the book, the ward is basically a maximum security zone located at the very heart of the establishment where evil spirits are permitted to roam freely for controlled periods of time. And it basically serves as training ground for employees who are graduating into the third, fourth, and fifth levels of employment. It's obviously a very dangerous place, and Sarah's not technically qualified to be in the ward yet, but Ansel's making an exception for her because he sees that she has potential and because she's the first person to volunteer for it. So this is kind of an interesting experiment for both parties. But, yeah, it was actually a pretty fun chapter to write, and also I guess creepy, disturbing. I don't know. I'll let you be the judge of that, but I'm just gonna get started here and see how it goes. So, chapter 8. Today, Ansel has taken me to the ward. I'm nervous, which is the only proof I have that I'm making the right decision. He's instructed me to wait for him in the barracks, which is what we call the series of windowless cells where catchers escape for a little privacy. Each room is outfitted with a cot, a mirror, and 4 concrete walls that meet a glass ceiling about 8 feet up. Most of the time, the barracks sit empty, except for those rare occasions when catchers are permitted to wear something other than the company uniform. Because quarantine requires additional precautions, I'll be wearing what all third-level catchers wear, a specialized bodysuit designed to minimize the risk of infection. Like the wetsuits living wear to go scuba diving, it's form-fitting but not restrictive. The outfit itself is made from holographic material and comes with reinforced boots intended to aid stability during turbulent transitions. After all, when it comes to ridding the world of evil, the holy man can only do so much. That's why Ansel keeps a cache of specially trained catchers at the ready at all times, in case the living find themselves faced with an evil spirit. We call these beings malevolents, and only those who've been to the ward know how to get them under control. I wind my hair into a bun and consult my keepsake for the umpteenth time. It's been the same shade of yellow ever since I entered the barracks to find the uniform folded neatly on the corner of the bed. Yellow doesn't concern me one bit. All it means is that my energy has shifted from neutral to cautious. It does this all the time, especially in situations where the spirits promise to be confrontational. I stand before the narrow mirror and watch the light frolic on the fabric of my uniform. It cascades over the slopes of my shoulders like children tobogganing down a wintry hill, and appears to linger uneasily on the endless edges of my face. Even now, alone with my reflection for the first time, I hardly recognize myself at all. I don't remember being this pale, or this muscular. Cancer taught me that curves come and go, so when I was sick I learned to embrace the inherent beauty of bone structure instead. It helped a lot, especially in those final weeks when people started commenting on my lack of weight. Satisfied with my appearance, I opened the door. Ansel is already waiting for me on the other side. When our eyes connect, I lift my chin and square my shoulders. My attempts at bravery aren't fooling anyone, least of all him. Scared? He asked me. I nod. You should be. The ward isn't for the faint of heart. Then I suppose it's a good thing I don't have one. A chuckle ripples Ansel's leathery cheeks. He nods slowly, and then assumes a relaxed pace as he leads the way down the hall. He always did have a sense of humor about things, he tells me as I fall into step beside him. Especially dying. It's a gift, really, being face to face with death and having the courage to laugh it off. I can't say that I have much to lose at that point. Oh, but you did. That was the most impressive part of it all. Even when cancer had taken everything from you, it still couldn't seem to get its claws into your positivity. Is that why you're taking me to the ward? Partly, yes. We round a corner and keep walking. I check my keepsake again. By now it's flashing orange, which is what happens when we go out of range. If it weren't for my excursion with Ansel, I'd be well advised to turn around. So, these malevolents, I begin as we hang a left and Ansel concentrates on his assertive footfalls. Where did they come from? These ones came from the basement, so they've already had exposure to the staff. Think of it as the difference between a wild animal and one born in captivity. Both possess the instinct to kill, but only one is compelled to use it. I match Ansel's confident strides. Storm clouds pack the space overhead, and there's hardly enough light to illuminate the hall, much less Ansel's expression. In humans, fear shows itself in peculiar but unmistakable ways, in shallow breaths, sweaty palms, and watery innards. But just because I'm hollow doesn't mean I'm empty. Fear is still a dear friend of mine, only now he makes his presence known in more subtle ways. I bring my hands together, trying to center my field, but there's so much interference that they end up repelling each other with a magnificent blue bolt of electricity. Ansel looks at me. We're close, he says. Bleed out your fear, there won't be any room for it in the ward. I nod and do as he says. Trepidation trickles from the temporary gash on my wrist and studs my skin with bright cobalt beads. The droplets dodge each other like kids engaged in a game of tag before launching themselves over the edge and vanishing before they've even touched the floor. Ansel comes to a stop at the end of the hall. Dim, ominous light illuminates the patchwork of crackling frost creeping across the floor toward the door, which is nearly double my height and features a specialized keypad for which only Ansel knows the code. The chill is spreading as we speak, and by the time he has punched in the combination, everything within our vicinity is encrusted in ice. I can't make any promises for your safety, he tells me, to which I only nod. Sometimes things go wrong and the malevolence find a point of entry, but if I didn't think you could handle this, I wouldn't have brought you here in the first place. I want to look at him, but I'm paralyzed by the frigid stoicism in his statement. No promises. The establishment is not in the business of making promises. It is, however, in the business of keeping evil in check. If I didn't believe I could make the world a better place, even if it's just on a spiritual level, then I wouldn't have volunteered for this. Keep one eye on your keepsake at all times, Ansel says. It sees everything, even when you can't. The malevolent will be scouting for weak spots, doubts, insecurities, regrets, anything that could potentially destabilize your energy. Do not give in to it. If you do, there will be little I can do to help. And if it gets in, I ask him, then what? Then, he replies, I'll have no choice but to destroy you both. I watch the door. Fingers of frost tangled together, weaving a new blanket of ice thread by crystalline thread. I extend a hand toward the metal barrier. Where my fingers meet its chilly glaze, the door expands like a lung, causing me to recoil in shock. You've awoken the beast, Ansel tells me in a calculated tone. Now, you must tame it. I'm not just afraid, I'm completely and utterly terrified. All the same, I have a job to do. Okay, I say. Open the door. Ansel obliges with a mute tip of his chin. The door grates open slowly, too encumbered with ice to do much more, and a couple of steps later, I'm inside. I walk to the middle of the room. Colossal concrete pillars are positioned at regular intervals around the arena, which is nearly double the size of the auditorium where catchers assemble during orientation. A glass ceiling crowns the imposing cinder block walls and offers an unobstructed glimpse into the holding tank where hundreds of malevolents are drifting like clouds across a blood-red sky. Bolts of energy infinitely more powerful than ours slither across the stormy canvas like lightning, forming a never-ending light show of catastrophic proportions. The floor itself is solid ice. Through a hazy circular window in the frozen foundation, all I see is a bottomless well of shadows. The darkness is deep, cold, and unforgiving, like a wrinkle in the earth's crust where only the hardest organisms can survive. I've never seen the blackness in person, only in slideshow presentations delivered by fifth-level catchers tasked with overseeing the transition process. Words and images simply don't do it justice. A gauzy figure emerges from the abyss. As it nears the surface, its facial features become more apparent and more repulsive. Weeping yellow welts blister its gray face, and its black eyes are streaked with ruptured blood vessels. Massive, overgrown claws click menacingly against the icy bottom, sending ripples of terror through my field. The being bears its pointed teeth, of which it has thousands, before pressing its mouth against the barrier and letting out a shriek so shrill that the malevolent circling overhead scatter in an instant. What is it? I ask, still eye to eye with the creature. Ansel, who is standing by the door, answers. Hate, he says simply, the engine that drives the underworld and the blackness, and the only thing capable of controlling the malevolent population. It feeds on them? To the contrary, it spawns them. Hate maintains its predatory fixation on me. I take a step back and then another, but it doesn't budge, or even look away. It lingers, glaring at me until Ansel wanders over and banishes the being with an inconspicuous flick of his hand. The creature recedes, skirting the shadows with a few forceful pumps of its tail before trailing like an unfinished thought straight to the bottom of the pool. Now that you've seen hate, Ansel says as he continued past me to the far side of the room, it's time we learn how to control it. I thought we were here to tame malevolence, I say dubiously. We are. Every malevolent is an extension of hatred, but a king is only as strong as his army. Vanquish his soldiers and you nullify his power. Ansel approaches the wall and taps it 3 times. From the uniform surface of its cement facade, the outline of a pedestal begins to take shape. It advances forward slowly, scraping across the floor until it is fully independent of the wall from which it emerged. Ansel produces a wooden box from a glass case above the pedestal's hiding place. The box is made of dark, highly polished material, rosewood would be my guess, and is sealed with a delicate brass lock. Needless to say, when I found out that I'd be battling evil spirits, this wasn't exactly what I had in mind. He places the container in the middle of the pedestal and then turns to look at me. It's a vessel, he says, laying a hand on the lid. Don't let its innocence fool you. Malevolence can attach themselves to anything. He gestures casually to the box, causing it to jostle angrily upon its stone perch. It trembles violently, brass padlock rattling against the wooden face, and I ground myself more firmly to the floor in anticipation of the malevolent's liberation. I glance down at my keepsake. It's red, the same murky red it had been in the chamber only days earlier. Think of your happiest memory, Ansel instructs me as the vessel shuddered beneath his touch. Malevolents only prey on beings that are spiritually inferior to them, which is why they so often target humans. Humans cultivate hatred, hatred spawns malevolence, and malevolence perpetuates the cycle by feeding on the human's fear. It's an endless cycle, but not an unbreakable one. Ansel observes me. Do you have your memory? I do. It's an old one dating back to the summer of 1992, when my parents took Brody and I to the ocean for a family picnic. I love this memory. Sea spray in our hair, sand between our toes, sunlight draped over our coppery shoulders like a blanket we would never outgrow. All that sweet temporary innocence offset by the salty permanence of the ocean, lapping and slapping playfully against our bronzed legs as we galloped back and forth along the shore. I nod. Ansel turns to the vessel. The lock snaps open and our eyes meet one last time. We exchange nods, and moments later he removes his hand from the lid. The box bursts open, releasing a billowing plume of fiery black dust. It fountains out of the vessel with tremendous force, blotting out the ceiling in a matter of moments. A rancid sulfuric stench fills the air as the malevolence spirals in on itself, forming a deadly vortex above my head. The sound it makes is deafening, like a million tortured screams echoing through an eternity of pain and suffering. It rumbles like thunder, disrupting my field in the process, and I cling to the memory of our family picnic with every shred of strength I can muster. Brody said he'd always be there for me, and I'd be a fool to deny it now. Good, Ansel says. Now build your orb, quickly. I close my eyes and center my energy. Electricity hums in the space between my hands. The distance between them widens, making room for the orb that will eventually form when all the pieces of this puzzle finally fall into place. I can see it all so clearly now. A million shimmering fragments banding together to form an indestructible shell around my field. Like grains of sand on a beach, they are nothing without each other, just as I was nothing without my family. Good, Ansel said again, more softly this time. Now call on the malevolent. With the orb nestled securely in my right hand, I raise the other and summon the being from above. It descends rapidly, fully prepared to devour me without a whisper of hesitation. Just when it's about to penetrate my field, I turn my right hand over and slam the orb against the floor, shattering it instantly. The shockwave is devastating. It radiates in every direction, sending the few remaining spirits scurrying for safety. The malevolent wails as it circles the ceiling like a startled sparrow. Unable to reach me through the protective dome encasing my field, the malevolent unleashes a squeal of defeat and promptly returns to its vessel. The lid slams shut, and seconds later, the ward goes quiet. I crumple to the floor and land on my knees. Between building the orb and withstanding its explosion, I've depleted all of my energy. I've been weak 1,000 times before, but never like this. Lethargy is shackled to my limbs and my thoughts are saturated with fog. The last time I was this helpless, I was bedridden and clinging to life by an IV line. I try and center my energy, but there's nothing left to work with. Enormous, indistinct figures swim placidly around the pool, flashing their hideous faces at me in passing, but I'm perfectly unbothered and fading fast. Darkness rises up to greet me, and seconds later, everything goes black. Okay, so that was chapter 8. I'm hoping to do something similar for my other novels as well. My other novel being Fate Unwritten and eventually Roads Untraveled when it is published, whenever that's going to be. I'm going to leave a link to both the paperback version and the ebook version in the description below. And if you guys have any other questions or comments or feedback or what have you, you know what to do. You can always just leave them in the comment section, or you can reach out to me on all of my myriad social media platforms. And yeah, I think that's all for now. So instead of rambling on like I normally do, I'm just going to wrap it up here and say thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.